Welcome to Civilian Carry Radio. This show is part of the Firearms Radio Network. This show is brought to you by our sponsor tonight, Big Tex Outdoors. Their main focus is high-quality tactical EDC gear. They, too, train with a lot of the quality instructors. Our mission statement is something that is important to them as well. They offer 100% risk-free shopping. That means if you change your mind, or whatever the case may be, they refund the purchase price. Not only that, but the shipping costs and pay for the return shipping, totally risk-free shopping. On top of that, most of their orders ship within 24 hours or less. Some of their items ship for as low as $1.99. They're an FFL Class 3 SOT, so they sell suppressors, SBRs, and NFA items. They have first-hand knowledge of the merchandise and gear they sell, so they're happy to answer any questions you have. Check out their website, bigtexoutdoors.com. Use the code CCRadio for a 15% discount at checkout. Remember, it's risk-free shopping. This podcast focuses on the importance of the Second Amendment, firearms, safety, education, training, and mindset. Our mission statement is gun ownership is your right, safety and education is your responsibility. I'm your host, Baraka James, along with my co-host this evening, Alan Sams. Good evening, Alan. How are you?
Great, Baraka. How's it going?
Doing well. And our special guest co-host is Big Daryl Volke, from Hardwire Tactical Shooting. We call him DB, so I don't know how to say his last name. Sorry. Good evening, Daryl. How are you?
Good. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, man. You, the viewers, make this program possible. You can contribute to the show via Patreon by going to patreon.com. You search for CC Radio or clicking the link here on our show notes. A huge shout out to our $5 per show Patreon pledges, Mark B., Christopher D., Rob J., and Israel L. We thank you guys so much for your continuing support. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual co-host and do not reflect the official policy or position of the Firearms Radio Network and or their employers. Viewer discretion is advised, especially on live shows. Before we introduce tonight's guest, we have a special message from our affiliate contributor who has been giving us some outstanding legal advice via the Law of Self-Defense, Mr. Andrew Branca. Please enjoy.
Thanks for joining us for the Law of Self-Defense Case of the Week. I'm attorney Andrew Branca for lawofselfdefense.com. This week's Case of the Week is Jordan v. State out of the Texas Court of Appeals and a decision handed down a couple of weeks ago on May 22nd, 2018. The issue in this case is whether a defendant is entitled to a self-defense jury instruction against a criminal charge of having accidentally shot two people when that defendant discharged his pistol while being attacked by a mob, and where the people shot were innocent bystanders rather than mob participants. This case begins, unsurprisingly, with a bunch of people drinking to intoxication in a bar restaurant, the Silver Star Smokehouse and Saloon in Texarkana, Texas. The defendant and a friend walked into the establishment to have dinner and were confronted by several of the drinkers who had a pre-existing grievance with the defendant. The defendant and his friend decided it was more prudent to leave rather than stay for dinner, so they canceled their food order and left. When they exited the restaurant, they had to walk past several of the drinkers who were gathered outside. The drinkers had apparently determined to attack the defendant and his friend, and as the defendant and friend fled to their car, they were indeed attacked. The defendant's friend was punched once, hard enough to immediately knock him unconscious. He would wake up in the ambulance and would be found to have suffered a fractured eye socket and nose from that single punch. The drinkers then rushed the defendant. The drinker who had knocked out the defendant's friend with a single punch was over 6 feet tall and extremely fit, in contrast to the defendant who was 5 foot 5 inches in height. So there was a substantial disparity of size and strength between just those two. In addition, however, the defendant was simultaneously being attacked by a second of the drinkers, so there was a disparity of numbers as well. After seeing what happened to his friend and being mobbed by two attackers, at least one of whom was much larger and stronger than he was, the defendant believed he had no alternative but to pull his gun and fire it, even though he could not see to aim the weapon. In other words, he was firing blindly. In doing so, he managed to shoot two people uninvolved in the attack on him. Both were seriously injured, but survived. And this would be the basis for two charges of discharging a firearm in a manner that constituted deadly conduct that were brought against the defendant. When the defendant fired the gun blindly, it did cause the two men attacking him to stop attacking him and to run away. The defendant fired at the larger attacker as he fled, striking him in the femoral artery. That attacker would survive the wound, however, and this would be the basis for an aggravated assault charge against the defendant. At trial, the defendant requested a self-defense instruction to the jury to all the charges against him, meaning both the aggravated assault charge for shooting the fleeing attacker and the 2 charges of deadly conduct for the shots fired blindly. The trial judge agreed to the self-defense instruction for the aggravated assault charge, but denied the self-defense instruction for the deadly conduct charges, the 2 blindly fired shots. The jury ultimately hung on the aggravated assault charge, and the court declared a mistrial on that charge, but the jury did convict the defendant on the deadly conduct charges. Now, these are third-degree felonies, so these are felony convictions. The defendant appealed his conviction on the grounds that it was reversible error for the trial court to refuse his requested self-defense jury instruction with respect to the deadly conduct charges. The defendant's reasoning is that although it's true he fired those 2 shots blindly and struck 2 people who were not attacking him, he fired the shots because he reasonably feared an imminent threat of death or grave bodily injury at the hands of the 2 men who were attacking him, and he fired the blind shots to end that attack. The appellate court, however, declined to accept this argument. It ruled that self-defense allows for the deliberate use of force against an imminent threat, not the mere blind use of force. Note that this is different than the transferred intent doctrine we've discussed previously in other cases of the week. If the defendant had fired lawfully and non-negligently at an attacker, and that round had overpenetrated and hit an innocent bystander, the lawful intent in firing at the attacker would transfer over to justify the incidental injury to the bystander. The facts here are different than that, with the Court of Appeals essentially concluding that firing blindly could not be a lawful use of defensive force because it was, by definition, not directed at a specific threat. Because the force itself could not be justified as self-defense as a matter of law, there was no need for the trial court to give a self-defense instruction with respect to the deadly conduct charges that were based on that unlawful blind firing. The defendant's conviction was affirmed. As always, I encourage you to read this case in its full text form. You can do that by pointing your browser to lawofselfdefense.com/Jordan. If you enjoy this content, I invite you to join us for the Law of Self-Defense live show every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. It's totally free to either participate live or to watch the recording after each show. For more information, point your browser to lawofselfdefense.com/show. Remember, you carry a gun so you're hard to kill. Know the law so you're hard to convict. I'm attorney Andrew Branca for lawofselfdefense.com.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to that. We've gotten great feedback from you guys, so that's why we're continuing with this. Thank you. So tonight our guest is Lee Weems. He is an LEO, and for those who don't know what that means, is law enforcement officer of First Person Security. Good evening, Lee. How are you?
Fine. How are you doing tonight?
Doing very well. Thank you so much for joining us. Alan, take it away, brother.
All right, Lee. Normally, first I lead off with getting you to introduce yourself to everybody and telling us about yourself. But I got to read first, because I want to make sure I do it. I got to read from your website, your philosophy and limitations, because it really strikes a chord with me. So y'all have to hold on for a second while I do this. I am not a SWAT cop, as that involves running places and jumping off of perfectly good buildings while hanging on to skinny pieces of rope. I didn't serve in the special forces. I didn't even serve in the conventional forces. I do have some tactical training. That was air quotes for people that are listening. And sometimes the guys who actually do that stuff for a living humor me by letting me tag along, usually to watch the back door. If you are looking for fantasy SWAT camp, I'm not your guy. I shoot Glocks and M&Ps. John Moses Browning designed a wonderful personal defense weapon in the form of the Winchester 94. Shot placement is more important than caliber. All handgun rounds suck equally, even the 45 ACP. Team/small unit tactics are for people who actually function together in life and are not for people who just happen to sign up for the same class and met each other that morning on the range. I'm not operator enough to refer to my stuff as kit. I love that one. Questions of ammo type, modifications, etc. are pointless if a shooting isn't legally justified. If a shooting is legally justified, that won't magically change depending upon your ammo choices or weapon modifications. I am classified as a master in the pistol division of IDPA only because IDPA adopted an abbreviated classifier perfectly suited for my skill set, as it doesn't involve running from here to there. I don't do nearly as well as my classification in actual matches. I am a GSSF master level shooter and do fairly well in GSSF as it involves standing in one place and shooting. I'm getting a theme here. What I offer are classes rooted in sound fundamentals and skills that even a slow, portly guy can accomplish in an environment in which you won't have to have the latest tip of the spear gear and tactical clothing in order to feel welcome, although I reserve the right to make fun of those using a Serpa. You won't need jungle boots, plate carriers, or a knife clenched in your teeth. Feel free to drive to the class site in a normal vehicle. Fast roping out of a helicopter is not required. I fully respect and defend the right of folks to walk around open carrying and with slung rifles / shotguns as a political statement. If you are such a person, do you respect and defend my right to call you an idiot without you getting indignant? All of the above hopefully makes the point that my classes are for armed citizens and peace officers who simply want to improve their skills without a lot of hoopla for hoopla's sake, or tied to certain dogma from which the students can't separate from technique. I want my outlook and, quite frankly, my limitations to be put forward in an upfront and direct manner in hopes that a prospective customer can make an informed decision as to whether or not to expend their time, money, and ammunition on my product. If you can't live with all of the above, by all means, choose a setting that is more agreeable to your preferences and beliefs.
Very nice. I like that. He had some great points that we definitely believe in on that.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome. But speak on that, and also, give everybody a little background and how you got into what you're doing now.
Well, first, I'm just very excited that I got my second place prize in the drawings. Has gotten here.
Ooh, very nice. What are those? Are those keeper concealment holsters?
Oh yeah, I was watching the other night when John Herm was on, and he made the joke about the second place prize in the drawing getting 2 keepers holsters. So
Awesome.
John begged for me to do that, so I had to do it. Okay. Well, I'm Lee Weems. As you can tell from this accent, I grew up somewhere very cosmopolitan. Actually, I grew up in Middle Georgia.
Okay.
I've lived there most of my life. I did live in Oklahoma for a little brief time as a boy, but we came back to Georgia. Been a peace officer since January of 1999. I've been the chief deputy of the Oconee County Sheriff's Office for the last 9 years. Georgia Post certified as a firearms instructor and all the typical government schools that go along with that. I found my way into the open enrollment training community back in 2014 and have just been rocking and rolling ever since.
Cool.
Okay, so you kind of brushed over that a little bit. So, folks, for you guys who haven't gone to the website and checked out Lee's pedigree here, get ready. Okay, so first of all, Claude Warner.
Wait, you got to keep it into context. He took his first open enrollment class. What's that? 4 years ago? 5 years ago.
April of 24.
There you go. So
there
you guys. So Alan had to clarify because it's important. So let me start. Let me get a good breath here. Rogers Shooting School Advanced Rating, Rangemaster Tom Givens Combative Pistol, Rangemaster Firearms Instructor Development Course Top Gun Award, Rangemaster Advanced Firearms Instructor Development, Rangemaster Intensive Pistol 1-day format, Rangemaster Defensive Shotgun Course 1-day format, Rangemaster Defensive Revolver, Rangemaster Defensive Shotgun Instructor, Tom Givens and William Maple, The Unthinkable, Lund Performance Consulting, Eric Lund Dynamic Rifle, Lund Performance and Consulting, Performance Shotgun, Lund's Performance and Consulting Rifle Pistol Lowlight, Lund's Performance and Consulting Level 2 Performance Rifle and Lowlight, Lund's Performance Consulting AK Operators Course, Langdon Tactical, Ernest Langdon Tactical Pistol, Ken Hacklethorne Advanced Tactical Pistol, Way of the Gun Frank Proctor Performance Pistol, Shivworks Craig Douglas Extreme Close Quarters Concepts. Don't know what GPTSD, Shotgun Instructor 40 hours, but wow, 40 hours of Shotgun Instructor, that's amazing. you might actually be a better shotgun instructor than DB. Sorry. GPTSC, semi-automatic,
I'll address that.
two advanced certificates. Galifi, patrol rifle instructor, FBI patrol rifle instructor, Sheriff of Baghdad, John McPhee, carbine marksmanship course, defensive training international, John Farnham, another guy we'd love to get on the show, defensive handgun, urban rifle, Gabe White training, pistol training solutions, hardwire tactical, Wayne Dobbs, hardwire tactical DB, advanced pistol skills, and one-day shotgun, Masad Ayub, deadly force instructor, and handgun combatives, Dave Spalding. There you guys go. Yes, that much since 2014, guys. He is a serial training junkie. And
well,
thank you.
I just realized that I don't have Brian Hill of the Complete Combatant on there. I need to go in and add that if I've missed that.
So my question is, Lee, when are you going to go back down to Texas and show DB how to work a shotgun? I'm just curious about that.
Whenever Daryl needs me to come show him good barbecue, I'll be happy to come.
Let me tell you, I got to say, I had the best barbecue I've ever had down there at Pecan Lodge, by the way, Daryl. Best barbecue.
Well, that's sweet. Well, you haven't been to the Hits Cafeteria Hard 8 barbecue yet, but we'll work on it.
I made it there on the last trip. I just had to give Daryl a hard time.
Yeah, well, it's different barbecue because there's also a case that Lee Weems saved my life in Georgia. He's my Georgia translator for the California guy when I go there. And a buddy of mine, I think, was setting me up, and he's all, "Hey, tell the waitress you want hoe cakes." And I'm all, "I am not telling this waitress I want hoe cakes." and Lee's all, "Daryl, it's okay. Trust me, it's okay." And I trusted Lee, and it actually worked out okay. I'm kind of a fan of hoe cakes now.
Okay, what is a hoe cake?
This is the, would have you done it?
No, because I would have thought he was setting me up.
Yeah, a hoe cake is it's like a cornmeal pancake. It's like a cornbread pancake.
Oh, okay. I love cornbread. So what's in it, Lee, besides cornbread?
Cornmeal.
Oh, that's it? Oh, okay. There you go. As long as it's got plenty of butter on it, I've been down with it.
Yeah, that's So one of my South Carolina buddies pulled me. No, tell me what hoe cakes with the meal. I'm like, sure, sure I will.
So with so we've proven that you've taken a couple firearms classes.
Yes, sir.
So how do you think that those have paid off for your line of work? And then what percentage of your coworkers, locally and also across the country, how normal is that for a law enforcement officer to have that kind of third party training?
From the open enrollment world, I don't think that level of concentration of training is very common as far as what a peace officer would normally get. In my agency, it's very, very common. The reason I've gotten to do a lot of these classes is that my boss, who is the greatest boss in the history of bosses, made the mistake of telling me that I could go to any shooting school I wanted to as long as I brought the information back to the sheriff's office and spread it amongst our personnel. And I hit the ground running. That Rogers shooting school that I attended and the Ken Hackathorn class were done in the same week. Rogers Monday through Friday, Ken Hackathorn Saturday and Sunday. I actually came back and taught classes for the agency the following week, trying to quickly incorporate some of that material into what I was teaching. Because I've made such a rapid swing through the open enrollment community, I've hosted a lot of classes here, but I've made a lot of contacts with a lot of the good people in the industry, and they have reciprocated by coming and helping and doing training for our agency. And just, Tom Givens has probably been the biggest benefactor, or she's been the big proponent of that. And all of our agency staff instructors are also range master certified instructors.
Wow. So you work with some gun guys then?
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
So what is it that makes a law enforcement officer do the kind of stuff that you do? Become the post certified instructor, serve on the board of directors, for your Georgia Association of Law Enforcement firearms instructors, and all this. I mean, I'm sure that doesn't take a little bit of time. I'm sure all this stuff adds to all this your regular daily duties. So what is it? What made you do that? Was it something that you just did for your for that education? Was there something that you were trying to fix or trying to make better?
Well, typical Southern upbringing. I grew up around guns. Grew up shooting, planking. I lived way out in a rural area, and we had to sometimes take care of wildlife issues and critter issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so I grew up, around the firearms. And then I did not actually go to the police academy until I was 27. Just after that, I went basically because I graduated from high school with a plan that I would never set foot in a classroom again. And after 4 years of working in a factory, I realized that was not a very good plan. So I went back to college and was going to actually be a middle school English teacher, and history teacher was what I started my undergrad. That's not how it ended up. And I finished with a bachelor's in political science with a minor in history. And I realized that was not going to be a very employable degree to have. And so I found a police department that would pay for my grad school tuition. And that's how I earned my master's degree. Due to having the lifelong interest in firearms, I gravitated towards the firearms training and got to go to a lot of the stuff at the Georgia Public Safety Training Center in Baraka. That's what the GIPSTIC stands for,
Okay,
that list.
Cool. Thank you.
Got to go to all their classes down there, and I wanted to be a firearms instructor mainly because I thought it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And, thought it was, that's the next step up to get to shoot more. I didn't know the truth about that then. And so here's the difference between my philosophy and outlook in life and Daryl's philosophy and outlook in life is that I was up for a promotion that I was pretty certain that I was not going to get. And I made mention to my lieutenant, said, you know what, if I can't get this sergeant position, if I had to choose between it and firearms instructor school, I think I'd take firearms instructor school. And so that was my consolation, let me down prize, was they sent me to the 80-hour firearms instructor school.
Wow. 80 hours.
You just got to make those openings when you can make them.
Right.
The door to a lot of the other training and being on the board for Gillespie, Sheriff Scott Berry picked a 10-year career patrol sergeant to come in and be his chief deputy, mainly because he liked some of the outlook that he'd heard me express and several different settings. And he brought me in as his chief deputy with the eye of wanting to improve the training level that his agency had. And that's what got me started into going to a lot of the classes, trying to make myself a better instructor because I was in charge of a program. Instead of being an instructor in someone else's program, now I'm running my own. Mm-hmm. And I got on the Gillespie board just because I wanted to have an impact on statewide firearms instructor and statewide policy.
Cool.
Let me jump in here real quick because, the only thing sergeants ever wanted to talk to me about was mustache length. I don't know what that was all about, but it was not that in school. Lee and I come from quite different growing up backgrounds. As, SoCal, critters were things you bought at the store that were already prepared for you, as opposed to shooting them. But one of the things, Lee, that we've traveled down a lot of the same paths and got there sort of differently. Something maybe you can express. It's a little hard for people outside to understand. Is what was the big difference you saw between state mandated police firearms training and what you're seeing out in the open enrollment world, or in some of the more specialized classes or training in very limited law enforcement circles versus what the state mandates that you have to take to be a firearms instructor? Have you seen much of a difference between the level of training?
I've seen a huge difference in the level of training. And I want to go back and preface that in that 2011 or so, I ventured out into the competition world, because I could go to any cop class that I wanted to, and I'd be in the top 2 or 3 shooters. And I thought I was good. I won my agency Top Gun Award. I was always winning one of the firearms proficiency certificates. And I really thought I was good. And then I went to my first match and got smoked by the proverbial printer repairman. I'm like, holy smokes, there's a whole different level of good here. Tom Givens, jokes about the number one injury to firearms instructors is throwing out their back by lowering the bar.
Oh, wow.
And what I see from the agency side of things, not necessarily my agency, but from the profession as a whole, is that training is viewed as just a means to get people qualified. It's not to train. We got to get people good enough to check this box. And let me explain something about the current Georgia pistol qualification course. You can miss the target completely, hit nothing but the planet Earth 6 times, and you can still pass the qualification course. And trying to get around the mentality of, well, I qualified or I shoot 96s on the state qualification course has probably been the biggest challenge as far as a fundamental philosophy change.
Yeah, one of the big things I noted, and that it's I think a bit generational, is a lot of guys go and they go to whatever the 80, 40 hour, whatever state mandated firearms instructor class is, and they're done.
Yeah.
And most of that stuff tends to be sort of this incestuous. That's the way we've always done it. Training, it really isn't cutting edge. It's basically how to grade targets and set up courses and things. It's not, and even the what I found is the NRA law enforcement firearms stuff is better for preparing you on that end of things.
Right.
But most cops tend to be afraid to get out of that world. Once they got that 80 or 40 hour ticket punch as a firearms instructor, they're done. They're absolutely done. And I think Lee and I have traveled down that road that, wow, there's a lot past that. And that's how you end up getting good. I also got to compliment Lee is that one of the places I have taught at is Gillespie, and Georgia boys can shoot. I mean, I will hand that out to them. I pick on my Southern brethren, but about all sorts of things like language and pronunciation of certain words in the English language, what they do. Boys down there, I was very impressed can shoot, especially the old ones. Guys were coming up in walkers, and they can stack rounds on top of each other. It's pretty impressive. So,
yeah. Going back to the agency mentality. The firearms instructor's job is viewed just too often. Two's a qualifier. I hate to say too often, because if you're viewing it this way at all, it's a problem. They look at the job as getting people qualified, not getting trained, and that's not necessarily the instructor's fault. It's just what's accepted amongst the profession. And and what Daryl was just saying about the inbreeding and the training, some of the larger agencies in the metro Atlanta area run their own academies. And so their firearms instructors may just go through training from the firearms instructors that were there before them. And they're never getting exposed to different material, different viewpoints, and different ways of doing things. The same guy ran the Gypstick firearms instructor program for over 20 years. And if you went through it in year 1 or year 18, you got the exact same material. There was no evolution of that program. It's not a bad program. If that's all a guy got, they had a solid foundation to go out in life, but it's not like, the other programs like Tom Givens, who, has his own program, but then always went through 2 or 3 other instructors classes per year, just so he could see what other material was being offered out there.
And still does. When we took his class, he was headed to Gabe White. And I spoke to Gabe on the phone the other day, and he told me that Tom did indeed follow up and go to that class. So the question first of all, I'm surprised that Daryl let you off with the inbreeding comment and the South thing and didn't connect those two. That was too much of a softball that I just can't believe you let go.
I don't go for low-hanging fruit.
Oh, okay. Second of all, Lee, you have a very, very unique perspective, being a law enforcement officer and teaching both law enforcement and civilians at the same time. Can you offer some of those perspectives on both sides?
Yeah. Unfortunately, for a lot of cops, and I hate to paint with a broad brush here, it's part of the job. And coming to training because you've been told to be there versus you're going on your weekend off and you're paying to be there. It's just a different mentality. It's like, oh gosh, Sarge signed me up for this class. I got to show up. I really had something else I wanted to go do today, and they're out there, and it's just another day at work. Whereas the person who's spending their hard-earned money and they're buying a case of ammo and they're traveling and they're spending 2 or 3 nights in a hotel to make it going, and they drive all night to get back to work on Monday. They get there, they want to hit the ground running at the start of class, and they want to keep going. And, the cop guys, the biggest question of the day is, the two biggest ones are what time's lunch and what time are we going home? And, and of course, government, we can squeeze a 3-day class into 5 days easy. It's not hard.
There's a very good thing that Alan and I saw this past weekend. Alan and I went through a class through Pat McNamara from TMAX. And it was a 16-hour 2-day course, and there were 4 law enforcement officers in there. And one was from New Jersey, one was from New York, one was from West Virginia, and then the other one was from Maryland. And the guy from Maryland said that not only did his PD provide the tuition for the class, they provided the ammo, they let him drive, and it was on PD time. He was able to claim that as a work day. So I wish, and I don't understand why more police departments throughout the nation don't do that. Is it budget specific, or is it because they don't deem it's important? That was my next question.
I would say the answer to that's all of the above. Budget and priority, or a lot of the times manpower issues. But I will go back and say I want to speak in glowing terms about the agency that I started out with. We were very much encouraged to go to training. I got to go to a lot of firearms training, but it was all at the Public Safety Training Center. A lot of times my work week was spent down at Gypstick with their firearms instructors taking a class, a 40-hour class here or a 24-hour class there.
That's awesome.
And but it was all in that same program, which again is a very strong fundamental program. But it's not like the same thing as jumping into the deep end with Givens, Hackathorn, some of the other great big names that we're all familiar with if you're listening to this show, and seeing just the different perspectives that are out there.
On this whole vein of, police and citizens, you have a class called Police Citizen Contacts. What is that?
Well, the origin of that class was actually called Interacting with the Armed Citizen when it first started. And I created that class in response to a lot of lawsuits that were taking place in the state of Georgia in regards to legally armed citizens that were being detained by peace officers. And I looked at the lawsuits, and to their credit, some of the lawyers that actually filed the lawsuits told me, hey, said, look, here's where we're attacking. And I designed a class to train as a defense to that and to teach the officers that this is not a Second Amendment issue. I really don't care whether you think, people should have guns or not. It's a Fourth Amendment issue. When a person is walking around free in America, and this is still America, when they're walking around free as a citizen, you have to have a reason, a legitimately legal reason to stop their freedom of movement. And so that's how the class started. After I taught it for a few years to agencies, I kept getting requests from private citizens to attend the class. And so I opened it up once just to see how it would go. I did it here at the sheriff's office in our emergency operations center, and a lot of private citizens came, and it was very well received. And so over the years, it's been kind of revamped to where it works and flows better, I think, for both audience types.
That's awesome, man.
Let me add on that too. Is one of the things is you guys interact with a lot of cops who are like me and Lee, and that we're training junkies. Like Lee's talking about, that armed citizen who gets up, and is going to a class, spending gas, coming off a long week at work, and wants to get in and train. Well, Lee and I were the guys. I get off Graveyard, go out to Scotty Reetz's places, spend the day there shooting all day, drive back, and go back to work on Graveyard.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's what Lee and I have done. If you want to be at a different level in the LE world, that you're doing the same thing that the armed civilians are doing and are armed citizens, and we appreciate that because most of us have done the exact same thing. But one of the really things that people don't get is most cops, and the farther out of Lee's world you get into big thriving metropolises, are not gun dudes. They're not. They are not our people. They're not gun folks. They're guys like who generally what I was grow up in a urban environment. You're not exposed to firearms. It's not part of your life. You didn't shoot critters. You didn't, like Wayne likes to say, you didn't shoot cans at Granny's pond because Granny didn't have a pond. They're just not firearms oriented, and they have as much firearms education as everybody else, which is from television. And when they interact, particularly with citizens who are very versed, very knowledgeable, there gets to be a communication gap, and a lot of guys have an ego problem with maybe acknowledging that citizen carrying a gun might be more knowledgeable about it and the laws than they are. Because cops got to be good on all the laws. Those citizens who carry guns can be very, very specific, and like these videos you do with Andrew Branca before the show. Most cops have never read those court decisions. Citizens are interested in them because they pertain to them, but probably couldn't discuss with you the intricacies of, some of the law stuff that the cops deal with on a daily basis. So what Lee does is a real gift to the community, and that trying to bridge that gap between both sides and kind of letting the cops know it's okay to interact with these people on an issue and explain it in the terminology they understand. Mm-hmm. And there needs to be a lot of education on both sides, because we got a lot of citizens who do not understand that what they perceive and what the information the officer got are two vastly different things.
Right.
Well, over the last couple of years, we've seen such a discrepancy from different police chiefs. Like, some of the ones like the guy who seems kind of anti-gun. I don't know if he is 100%, so I don't want to misquote him, but the guy down from Broward. But then you got the guy out in Detroit who thanks God that he has all those armed citizens and encourages them. And they love their chief. And he said that because of the citizens, it's made a big difference in, the crime declining there, because he's telling the citizens, hey, we don't have enough manpower. We can't get there in time. And the criminals have seen over and over that the citizens have responded in Detroit, and it's lessened because of that fact. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, let me go back to that. You talk about the different types of, you say chiefs, but, let's say agency heads, because you have sheriffs and you have police chiefs and other types of agencies. And I'm going to pick on Daryl once again here and just tell Daryl about some of the things he could have done. It would have made his life and career much more pleasant than certain aspects that were. He wouldn't be arguing about mustache length so much. Kind of how you learn how to manage a situation. I was standing in my boss's office, and he had the news on, and it was one of these high profile use of force incidents, and a city was burning, and, and the agency head was on camera, and some of the stuff that he was saying was just, no wonder his city is burning, because that's what he just stood in front of a news camera and said. And my boss is kind of a defining moment type of guy. If you strike while he is just had a defining moment, well, that was one. And he's just ranting and raving about what he's hearing from this agency head. And I said, you know what, boss? There's this class out there called from the Force Science Institute. That's like a 40-hour class that teaches you how to answer all those questions that the reporter just asked that guy. And my boss slams his hand on the table and says, well, I'm going and you're going. And that's how I got to go to the Force Science Institute class.
And the difference between me and Lee was I was never in the chief's office except for something bad. They would have had to call me in from home during daylight hours to go talk to the chief, but that's never good. It usually revolved around a mustache issue. So,
well, the one thing in my career, I was kind of banging my head against moving up the ladder, I guess we shall say, and I was making things pretty hard on myself. And my chief at the time told me, says, the reason you're not making sergeants not because of work product, because your work product's among the best we have in the agency. You're not making sergeant right now because I can't trust you to carry out my policy amongst the shift. I need to know that whatever comes down the pipe for me, that you can go out and carry that out and enforce it and make it work. And when you prove to me that you can do that, then I'm going to give you a shift to run. And I sulked, and I sat around for a while. Well, I know what I'll do. I'll just do my job and not try to help things. Well, kind of that's what they wanted me to do. And when I started doing that, eventually I worked my way out from under that, and 2 lieutenants just wouldn't let me quit. Just wouldn't let me just give up. And they conspired to get me assigned to the investigations unit. And I spent a year as a detective and made the mistake of getting myself promoted right out of that job into a sergeant's job. But I spent the first year that I was a sergeant as a special admin assistant, basically to the agency administration. And I learned so much in that year. When I went back to a patrol shift, I took all that knowledge with me, plus the year that I had as the detective, back to my patrol shift. And while I had actually kind of hit the ceiling as far as I could go in that agency, the sheriff in the neighboring county took note. And I went from being a sergeant at one agency to being the chief deputy at the neighboring agency the next day.
Congratulations.
Mm.
The key is there's not a lot of, I got more accomplished in my agency having when the stars aligned and I had 2 bosses like Lee. Once I got the right sergeant, the right lieutenant in the firearms and the training division, you can make a lot of stuff happen. And then the other half of that is those guys go away and everything else goes away with it. So it can be a little tough. But, one of the things that, my hat's off to Lee is that, the sign of a true leader is training your people, not supervising your people. And that is a lost concept. The other one I like to say is, Lee has beat this one, because when you can beat this, amazing things happen. When you talk about those guys who get to go train on duty and all that, the way to the top is not through the range in a vast majority of agencies. It is a freakish phenomenon for somebody like Lee to end up in the position he's in. And with that, they can affect a lot. And the thing is that they affect not getting sued, not having poor public relations, not having bad shootings, because they understand the importance that that's your greatest form of liability is use of lethal force. And they take it that seriously, while most of the others don't, for whatever. They literally think, well, if we checked the qual box, we're immune from it. They're not. It's a abandonment of leadership. So, guys like Lee out there are really a gift in the law enforcement world. And, I was never quite blessed enough to have a chief like that, but I had one close one.
That's awesome.
My goal as a shift sergeant was to become the most irrelevant person on the shift. I wanted my guys to be able to function if I was not there. You could take me out of the equation and they could go do everything they would do, that if I was standing there giving them the order. And I can think of one night on shift where just the entire world dropped upon us and my guys made it look easy. And if you looked at the GPS tracker on my patrol car, you would have seen me driving in a circle in a parking lot, because I was trying to decide which call was the most important one for me to get to. And then I listened to the radio traffic, and it's like, my guys have got this. And I ended up going to the one where there was actually something life-threatening involved. And I went, and as I got out of the car, I see my guys just doing some amazing work. They saved a life that night. And I see them doing everything that I would have been doing if I gave the orders. And that was on midnight shift. And the next morning I'm waiting for the brass to get there. And I'm standing outside, and they show up, and they could tell the fact that I'm standing out on the steps waiting for them to get there, that something bad must have happened during the night. And so I go into the major, and we sit down, and I brief him on everything that happened during the night, and I'm talking about what my personnel did. And he said, "So what were you doing during all this time?" And I looked at him and smiled and said, "Absolutely nothing. I did it before tonight." And now in the position that I'm in, I've been able to shape the agency philosophy. And like I said, I've got my three current firearms instructors are all Rangemaster guys. If for whatever reason I'm not here tomorrow as chief deputy, those guys are still going to be able to continue and carry on. That's just because I'm not here anymore doesn't mean that this same training and philosophy is not going to carry on through the agency, because that's what those guys are instilled with. That's what they bought into, and that's what they believe, and they're helping make it happen.
That's awesome.
When I first started trying to teach some of the stuff I was bringing back from the open enrollment classes, I ran into a wall with some of my personnel. It's like, this isn't what Gypstick teaches. And rather than fight that wall, I started getting a couple of the guys who seemed open to it through some of those same classes. And then they come back. Okay. And then it's not, not the loud guy over in the corner. It's, their buddies say, no, this stuff's pretty good. This stuff works. And that's how we've been able to spread it throughout the agency.
Amen.
There tends to be a attitude. What I ran into a lot of, and just coming from the background I did and where I got in, was you can't teach that stuff to the patrol people. That's SWAT stuff. That's only the special police can know that. I'm like, front side press, follow through, and absolute adherence to the 4 basic safety rules. That really doesn't seem like something that should be really limited to just a few people in the agency. And, as Lee's finding out, when you start treating patrol officers like grown-ups and train them like everybody, like you train them to a much higher standard, some will go kicking and screaming, but in a majority of cases, just the fact that somebody treated them like a grown-up, that can handle, better firearms instruction actually goes a long way.
So real quick, guys, Lee, this is to you from Joshua Glazov. He said, what did he say? He said, what is your favorite Claudeism?
It's okay. One of the things that's one of the hardest lessons for me to learn in life is that I can't persuade everyone else out there in the world to adopt my point of view of everything through just wonderfully sound logical arguments. I don't understand why they're not buying into the way I see things all the time. And I've lived a lot of my life absolutely convinced that if I just said one more thing to this guy, I'll get him to buy in. And, and by God, we can't tolerate anybody being wrong on the internet. We must hunt that down with a vigor. And, you can see somebody walk up and say something, just the most stupid thing to Claude. And Claude just says, no, it's okay. And then he just goes on with whatever he believes. And I'm like, wow, that works.
Okay,
it really does.
That makes sense. And also Shelly from the Complete Combatant, she said she hosted Lee's Police Citizen contact several times, and it's an outstanding class.
Well, thank you. And Shelly has goodie bags for everybody, by the way. I'm sure she's frantically making them right at the moment.
So back to your classes and stuff like that. Can you kind of give us a quick once over on your defensive? I'm kind of focusing more on the pistol stuff because I feel it's a little more relevant to civilians, but you got to get the lever gun in there too, though. But a defensive pistol, your more pistol skills, critical pistol skills, and like I say, I got to hear about this social lever gun class.
Well, which one would you like to start with?
Well, since you're going to ask social lever gun.
All right. I grew up in a very, very, very extended family. And to kind of put that in context, on the side of the road that I lived on was 4 generations of my direct line family. Across the road was 4 generations of my grandmother's brother's family. Just up the road was another 3 generations. My mother is one of 36 grandchildren that we know about. I got a couple of uncles. We didn't get a full accounting of a couple of her uncles. So at least 36 that we know about. As a teenager, I was put into a situation where I was tested and had to grow up fast. My father wound up in the hospital having a major surgery. Went left home one morning to go to what he thought was a routine doctor's appointment and did not come home for weeks. We had livestock to tend and take care of. I had 3 mares that were due to foal any day. And his first cousin, who was like a brother to him, they were 3 months apart in age and lived their entire lives within a few miles of each other. Coincidence, it's that cousin showed up at the house several times, during the first few days of that to check on me. And after that, I didn't see him coming every day to make sure everything was okay. And when it was all said and done, he handed me a old Marlin Glenfield Model 30 and said, "I'll tell your daddy you're ready for this." And so for me, it's getting handed that lever gun was a sign that the elders of my family have decided, all right, this one's going to make it. He's all right. And so I've just had a deep abiding love for the lever gun ever since then.
Me too.
And I've just, for the longest time, it was the only centerfire rifle I owned. I've got several ARs. They either stay in my closet in my office or somewhere. I don't even have them in the house. I've got 2 lever actions. And oddly enough, everything that you do with a pump shotgun, you can do with a lever action rifle.
Okay, so here's the thing. Okay, Lee, I gotta talk to you about this because I came to Alan about this a couple weeks back. So I've always been, because I'm a John Wayne fan, I grew up watching John Wayne. I've seen every John Wayne movie 10 times over. I've always wanted a lever gun. So I told Alan, because he grew up with lever guns too, I was either going to get a 30-30 or a 45-70. And I looked up the ballistics and I saw 200 yards, 300 maybe stretched out. I was like, it's a medium. I can't really shoot because my go-to rifle is my Winchester Model 7270. That's my deer rifle, and I can hit anything anywhere with that. I've never missed a shot with that gun. So I'm like, because of the ballistic limitation, that's the only thing that holds me back from buying that gun. I want it so bad.
What's the farthest you've ever killed a deer?
I knew you
or
were going to say that. I know, 250 yards.
Okay,
250 yards.
Wow.
I know. But I want the capability in case I need it. That's all.
Well, so they did hunt American bison on the Great Plains with 45-70s. So you got that going. Of course, where I grew up, a 30-30 rifle will handle anything that you would ever want to use it on, 2-legged or 4-legged.
Mm-hmm.
What's kind of funny is coming from literally our backgrounds could not be farther apart. My itty bitty family that didn't live anywhere near each other in Southern California too. Yeah, but what's funny is I'm a huge lever gun fan for a completely opposite reason. Is when California started passing all these crackpot laws, I started looking at ballistics and I went 45-70, baby. That was going to go out the door. I built a 30. I still have it. It's a 32-inch overall length 45-70.
Nice.
Nice. It took 2 inches off the back of the stock. Things cut down to 16 inches. The recoil, it is absolutely like shooting thunder. And I'm like, going out the door that, nobody I've been pulled over in California by non-gun state traffic officers. Will not call guys with blue bow ties police, but Ponch and John, baby. So, I got a 45-70 lever gun. It looks like a 22 because it's so small in the back. Nobody says a word, and it is literally for about every problem you're going to come up with. It lays pure thunder. And now my travel gun, when I got to go to band states, when I go back to California and all that stuff, Brockman, and it's I was laughing about it, it's a Glenfield 30-30. It's a Brockman version because it's a sophisticated. I got to have like the HK of lever guns. I need a $2,000 30-30. But that's my travel gun now.
Nice.
It's small, and if I'm not carrying a gauge or with the gauge, is that 30-30 is. I'm like, tell people, I go, yeah, good luck. If thing drops deer like the plague, I think it'll work across a hotel room.
Right. You guys
or across a hood.
I'm buying one now. I got
You know what? I've got a 357 lever gun with a big loop for you here. We might have to work a deal so that you can have like the total John Wayne edition.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You won't hunt with it, but at least in the 357, which actually starts getting into some really good ballistics out of it.
Yeah, let's talk after the show, man.
Yeah.
I
Shoot 38s in it, and you'll be okay. You can play John Wayne. Get a little hat.
Oh, yeah. I'm down for it, man. You don't even know.
Order
But it's funny.
a hoe cake, and you'll be good to go.
Okay. So Alan has a very similar background to you, Lee. Alan, tell Lee about your lever gun story and how many brothers and sisters your father had.
Oh yeah, you don't even want to get into the whole family battle with me, buddy. My dad had 20 brothers and sisters. And it just goes on from there. Yeah, I've got a very tight knit.
We're back to low hanging fruit and Southerners again.
Yeah. I don't think I have any uncle daddies or anything like that.
Think.
Yeah. Hey.
See, I know. You don't think.
But yeah, when you were talking about for the longest time, I thought that a lever action 30-30 or 35, they were kind of, almost interchangeable, but I never, I thought that was the gun. There wasn't anything better than that. And I think for a while there, I remember there was, I know at Best Company and maybe it was Kmart. It was like $174 or something like that, for a Marlin. But, and then, people started committing blasphemy and putting, 3x9 scopes on them and stuff like that. But, where we hunt there, you didn't get 100-yard shots, there's no 100-yard shots because the brush was so tight and everything like that. But yeah, the lever action was it. And I remember, I had an uncle that had a Buffalo Bill, octagon barrel, 30-30. That was real cool. And then, a Savage had no hammer on it. It had a little bullet counter thing on the side of it. I forget the model of that. But yeah, the lever action was always a really, really, that was what you got when you grew up, So, but onto your pistol classes, I guess start, with defensive pistol and move down from there. And I guess, there's probably, prerequisites after you get past defensive pistol and just how those build on each other.
Defensive pistol skills has become my bread and butter class. Locally, I teach all one-day classes. And someone asked about Claude Warner earlier. And Claude has been an invaluable resource without ever actually trying to be an invaluable resource, I think, because I get to spend a lot of time with him. And I know Brian and Shelley Hill are watching tonight and in the chat. I get to spend a lot of times at dinner with Claude and Brian and Shelley, and sometimes Tom and Lynn are up and everything. And I sit back and I listen to Claude gripe about things. And when I hear him talk about one statement that he made one time was about a lot of firearms training is nothing more than firing squad drills. And so I said, so what can I do with my bread and butter core pistol class that if Claude ever comes to it, he won't walk away thinking that all I did was teach people how to stand there and poke holes in paper, basically a firing squad drill. And so I developed this whole class around basically incorporating the 4 lifestyle rules of possessing a firearm. I like to phrase them that way because that's how my mentor Tom Givens phrases them, into shooting drills, and also a set of drills that just makes the shooter process information while they're shooting and actually have to make shoot, no shoot decisions throughout the class, and including a head-to-head competition at the end of the class. And I think it's very important that we must make people do things other than just draw the pistol and shoot. We must make people make decisions while they're doing that. And we take cops, and I hate to keep going back to that frame of reference, but we take cops, we let them get by with shooting an 80 on the range, and we give them a gun, and we send them out into the world to hopefully hunt down bad guys. And then when they're finally confronted with one, and they've never made the decisions while they're trying to do the most complicated skill under stress that they're going to have to do. And so the defensive pistol skills is my attempt to be able to bring that to a square range. And Sherman House he's been through the class and wrote a very nice article about it. That's probably the best write-up on it that you're going to find out there. Going from that, more pistol skills was just basically, I couldn't think of a better name for level 2.
I like it.
So just more pistol skills. If I ever start traveling and doing the 2-day thing, I'll blend more pistol skills and defensive pistol together and maybe move some stuff around. More pistol skills, actually, I started out with a framework in mind for what I wanted to do. And then Shelly Hill posted that she had just come back from the range. This was the night before the more pistol skills class. She posted that she'd just come back from the range. She said, you know what, I need to learn when to speed up and when to slow down. And I scrapped my entire lesson plan and wrote a new lesson plan right there on the spot for how to teach Shelly how to speed up and when to slow down. And we went out on the range, and that class is a yo-yo effect. You shoot one drill with me standing behind you with a shot timer or a stopwatch, and then you have to shoot bullseye the next drill. And it's pretty stressful as far as shifting gears and stuff on those classes. But again, it's the cadence. If you got the one bad guy that's right in front of you, but his partner's 15 yards away getting out of the car coming to help his buddy, you can't make those shots at 15 at the same speed that you're doing them at 3. You got to be able to slow down and make those shots count, or the bad guy's partially obscured. If I were doing is sitting there shooting this perfect silhouette 2D-dimensional target that never moves, yeah, you can get away with some stuff, but you got to be able to have the trigger control and the mental discipline to slow down when you have to slow down. And so that was the development of the more pistol skills class. And Shelly, at the end of that day, she passed the FBI firearms qualification for the first time.
Cool.
And of course, I love to pick on Brian and tell him that it was all due to me and that I'm the one that got her there. But Shelly's been she's trained with her husband Brian, who's an excellent trainer, the Complete Combatant in Marietta, Georgia. Check them out, please. She's trained with Tom and Lynn. She's trained extensively with Claude Warner and everything else. But I'm taking credit for getting her over the top there, and for getting her into the ladies shoot off at the TACCon this last year.
Okay, well, it sounds like they're a suggestion for the show, right?
Okay, I lost you. I lost you there for a second, Baraka.
I'm having technical difficulties tonight.
There you go. You're back.
So they sound like a potential great people to have on the show as a guest, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
Your
Absolutely.
thumbs up. Okay, cool. Well,
Absolutely.
Shelly just said, or the complete combat question for Lee. Can you please tell us about the class you have coming up called Test Day? ?
Sure. Test Day is basically, we're going to start off, we're going to do a little pistol clinic on some of the skills that are required in some of the well-known law enforcement qualification tests and some of the other private sector drills that are really popular, such as, understanding how to go to a kneeling position, how to shoot from a barricade, etc. And then we're going to run into a series of well-known qualification courses. One of the things, we're going to shoot the Georgia standard qualification course. We're going to shoot the FBI pistol qualification course and some other things, and I'm not going to tell them until they're on the range shooting.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah. South River Gun Club, which is in Covington, Georgia, June 23rd. And I'm cheap, $135, and 35 of that's for range rental.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, after of course attitude and awareness, what is the most important skill for a civilian, concealed carry civilian to develop?
The ability to walk away from a confrontation, or to avoid it altogether to begin with. And I really don't know how you teach that in a classroom setting.
Yeah.
I I want to give a hat tip to John Farnham. He has a great set of verbalization exercises that he does at the outset of his classes, and some things that you actually do on the range, such as how to deal with the panhandler that comes up and addresses you and is just trying to get your attention and get you to stop. And I've incorporated my spin on some of that into some of my classes. And my open enrollment company, First Person Safety, I started it about the same time I started taking classes, and it was just a way to pay for me to go to more training that I didn't have budget for. I've had two documented successes in that time. One of my guys, Adam Thrower, there's a video of his shooting, which, by the way, if you're a body camera salesman, his on-duty shooting is the one you want for your commercial for your body cams. I came back from the Rogers shooting school, and I had him out there on the range shooting from low ready to hitting a 4-inch piece of paper in half a second or less, repeatedly. Then what do you see happen in his shooting? He had to go from low ready to shoot a bad guy that was trying to kill him and 2 other deputies in less than half a second, and he did it. But I have one student that's come through one of my private sector classes, and they're pretty much the same lesson plans, where I stressed how to avoid certain situations and to get out of them. And he sent me an email describing a incident in detail where I talk about the change of direction, how you can watch for the guy that if he's picking you and he's selected you, if you change direction and they change direction to meet you, obviously they're coming for you, and this isn't just a chance meeting walking down the sidewalk. And he had one of those situations develop, and he was able to escape the situation. And so while that'll never show up in a stat sheet, it's like, how many crimes did you prevent last night? We don't know. But that one's never going to show up in a stat sheet and everything. But to me, that's just as big a win as Adam's.
Awesome.
Yeah, how not to get into a shooting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Let me pony off of one of the things you just said, and it's something I've asked. I'm hopeful I'm not giving away. Barack and I have talked about doing a whole show on this. I think believe me, a great guest is that if we did a multiple guest thing is, what do you think that law enforcement trainers? What's the best thing you can give to the armed citizen as a student on where that interaction is? Where's that? What's the benefit to them of the law enforcement training? Because you're kind of like me, is that you don't change a whole lot between what you train the cops to do and what you train the citizens to do.
If I understand the question correctly, to me, the biggest thing is the processing information while actually utilizing the physical skill of shooting. It's you get all the mental processes delineated in. That's one of those big 4 science words, by the way. John Hearn will be happy. Delineated in, or whichever technical term you want to use for that. You
Hardware.
Get those.
Hardware.
I'm sorry.
Right there.
I'm pitching my company. Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, hardwired. Yeah,
Hardwired. Yeah, you want to hardwire that stuff in.
Right. It's once you get the basics of that down, start making the student make decisions and process information. I have a drill, and Daryl will understand the name of this drill immediately. I don't know if the other 2 guys will get this. And this was actually named by our personnel. I have a drill called the Blue Falcon drill. And I see he recognizes it, and that's what my guy's named.
I got patches for that to hand out.
Oh, yeah. And it's basically I put different numbers on targets downrange, and the other students get to set up your shooting problem. And as you move through the range, you may get a target that is signified as a no shoot. You may get one that signifies, if it's got a 1 on it, you shoot a headshot. If it's got 2 on it, you shoot 2 to center mass. If it's got 3, you do a failure drill. But to incorporate those 4 lifestyle rules, into possessing a firearm, there may be a no-shoot standing directly behind your number 3 target. And so you have to change your angle so that when you shoot through your target, that the rounds don't go through and hit the no-shoot. because we're not on the world's not a square range with berms around it. The world's a actively moving place with, other people moving around in it. And I think we have to be making people make those decisions in training before we send them out into the world with a gun and hunt bad guys.
And for everybody out there that doesn't know, you get a blue Falcon award if you screw over your buddy. So,
yes.
It's a buddy fornicator.
Yeah. All right. This really sucks, but we're down here to the wire now. So I guess I got to ask you, let everybody know where we can get a hold of you, what you've got coming up, anything that you'd like to let everybody know about. Do that now.
Well, this weekend I'm actually hosting the Rangemaster reunion for Rangemaster certified instructors. That's here in Oconee, Coney County, Saturday and Sunday. In July, I'll be teaching at the Northwest Tactical Conference, which is a Rangemaster event. I think July 27th, 28th, and 29th are the days on that. If you look on the rangemaster.com, you'll see the schedule for that. I'm teaching my police citizen contacts course, as well as 2 blocks of defensive shotgun. I'm very happy that I created a lesson plan and for a defensive pistol and had already put that out in the course flyer. And then Tom decided I have to get across the country with a shotgun somehow. Yeah, he's the boss. Locally, the one thing that I've got on my schedule coming up is that test day that we're going to do, and it's 50% full right now. So if you want in on it, you better hurry. That's the only thing I've got on the schedule right now. But my webpage is firstpersonsafety.com. The hardest thing about starting your own training company was coming up with a good name for it, and it was so hard I couldn't do it. And
I'm surprised you didn't get millenniation in there somewhere.
There you go. And that's actually my second attempt, if that tells you how bad it is. Firstpersonsafety.com is my webpage, and it's basically just a rudimentary WordPress webpage, but you can get to my class information from there. Facebook.com/firstpersonsafety and whatever that Instagram thing is, First Person Safety. I haven't quite figured out why I just want to scroll through a bunch of pictures, but oh well, that's Instagram.
Well, don't worry, folks. We have all of his links in the show notes, both under the YouTube video and if you go to our website on firearmsradiotv.com. So now it is on to rapid fire questions. Lee, you ready?
Sure.
All right. Question number 1, 9 or 45?
9.
Striker fire, double action, or single action only?
Striker fire.
Appendix or strong side hip?
Strong side hip.
In the home, pistol, rifle, or shotgun?
As much as I love my lever action, if I've got to shoot somebody, they deserve to be shot with double-aught buckshot, and it's going to be my shotgun.
Amen. Word. Agree. Use of timer in training, yes or no?
Absolutely.
Red dots or irons?
I grudgingly adopted red dots when I had to grudgingly adopt ARs because of work purposes. But for a pistol, I'm iron. I can't find the dot. I can't see it.
Talk to Alan about that after the show. All right. Favorite shooting drill?
The avoid the gunfight drill.
Now, if you don't give them a shooting drill, I'm going to get beat up in email tomorrow, Lee. So give them a shooting drill that's your favorite that they can practice.
The one that everyone would know would be the casino drill.
I love that drill, man. That's an awesome drill. 3 books you recommend that are must reads.
Oh, wow. I should have studied for this.
John Hearn had a freaking bookcase behind it. Come on. Don't let John off this season.
Scotty Reetz's book, I found to be very well. Daryl, what's the name of it?
It's volume 1 of gunfighting, The Art of Gunfighting.
When Tom Givens assigned you a book to read, that's a pretty good scorecard there, or good measuring stick there. And that's a book that Tom assigned me to read as part of a project that he had me working on, along with John Hearn, John Murphy, and Tiffany Johnson. And Tiffany, by the way, is the greatest gift to the firearms world ever. And I wish more people knew about her.
She's supposed to come on,
I gotta let you know she's scheduled as a guest, just so you guys know. We have Tiffany Johnson on Wednesday, August the 22nd, 2018 for our 68th episode. So make sure you guys tune in.
23 of us want to be co-host and grill her.
You guys, we'll put you in a battle royal to fight that one out.
Yeah, that'll be good. Yeah.
I guess the second book, obviously, I've got to give a hat tip to my mentor and in the open enrollment training world, and that would be Tom Givens' book, Fighting Smarter.
Okay.
And then for a third book, I'm going to go off the beaten path here. I'm going to go back to the list that Tom had us read. And please forgive me, all the gunsight people. I forget the name of the book.
Cat in the Hat.
Yeah.
That's a Georgia book.
It was a book written in 1960 by Jeff Cooper.
Okay, let me see.
And in that book, he's writing all about the virtues of point shooting. And the next book on the list that we were supposed to read was a book that he wrote in 1961. And he has discovered that there's a front sight on a pistol.
Mm.
And that if you focus on that front sight while you press the trigger smoothly to the rear, etc., magical things happen. And there's no new inventions in the firearms world. These debates that we have about different techniques and different gear and everything, they've been around since people have been around, and since firearm usage has come into the age of man. And all this stuff has happened before. All of it will happen again, to get a good sci-fi reference for some of the guys out there. And none of these debates are new. And the biggest thing lacking in the firearms training community as a whole is a lack of historical context.
Amen.
And not knowing what the people who laid out the modern techniques and everything that we go through. And that was the beauty of the project that Tom Givens had us working on. And so, we all, the four of us, spent all this time reading these books, etc. And then we show up at the last resort down in Florida, his and Lynn's wonderful house. And we get there, and he says, all right, now you're ready for what you're really here for. And that was when he told us to codify the Range Master Doctrine. And to have Tom Givens sitting in the next room listening to four people argue about what Tom Givens' doctrine is, and putting it into a presentation that we were supposed to present to other Range Master instructors was pretty daunting. And, you got to know where we came from to know where we should be going.
Amen. Was it by chance, Lee, Principles of Personal Defense by Jeff Cooper?
No, it was one of the pistol shooting books, and I'll try to get the list.
No worries. We can always get that back from you
Sure.
and put it in the show notes later. Okay. Please recommend one peer teacher, trainer, coach, or fellow instructor.
What's
Not
that?
Tom Givens.
Can't say Tom Givens.
Use Tom Givens again. So you got to get somebody else.
All right. Well, I've already talked about Brian Hill a lot. So I'm going to go off the beaten path here again. And I'm going to make up a lot of awful things that I've done to one of my former guys that's now gone on to do bigger and better things at the local police academy. And I'm going to recommend Clark Sparrow, Sparrow Defense.
Clark Sparrow, Sparrow Defense. Okay.
Who is at one time was the record holder for the casino drill in a class. And he was one of our agency instructors here. It was a Range Master certified instructor, still is, but he set a record in one of the classes for the casino drilling class. But then Captain James Hill, who is our current patrol division commander, came back and smoked him in the next class.
Oh, wow.
And, so that 1033 record's is an Oconee guy.
Wow, 1033. So that was my next question, man. That is insane. That's half my time, but I'm slow as crap anyway. So, last one. Medical training you recommend?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Medical training you recommend?
I haven't taken the class yet, but I'm a huge fan of Sherman House, and he has a medical class that he's rolled out in his teaching, and I will be hosting that class. I think it's hemorrhage arrest control. And that will be for the open enrollment circuit. I would say that's where you would probably be a good start.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, folks, to become a corporate sponsor or to advertise on the show, please send me an email at baraka3@gmail.com for details. Please share, subscribe, leave your feedback by commenting at the bottom of this YouTube video. If you're listening on any of our audio podcasts, you can find us on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podbean, and various other podcast outlets. Again, you, the viewers, make this program possible. You can contribute to the show via Patreon by going to patreon.com, search for CC Radio. You can contribute as little as $1 per show, $1 per month. Anything helps us out to continue to help supporting us. Thank you to the people who pledge your support to continue our goal of educating people on the importance of the Second Amendment. Firearms education, training, and mindset is huge, and we really appreciate it. Join us next Wednesday night, June the 13th for 2018 for our 59th episode where we're featuring Amy Robbins. She's a Second Amendment activist who was a former host on NRA TV and CEO of Alexo Athletica. She was most recently in the news. Her Alexo Athletica product was featured with Tom Loren and made a big deal about she basically makes a lot of things for ladies like yoga pants and things like that for them to be able to conceal and carry when they're running, for them to be able to get a pistol because they were having trouble finding things for women who were doing a lot of active sports and things like that. So she's been catering to that market. Alan, final thoughts, brother?
Well, appreciate everybody coming on, DB, Lee. I really like listening to you talk about your guys, and you can tell how you feel about them and how you really put a lot into making sure everybody's trained. And I know that was a really proud moment, for you when your guys handled everything without you. So, I mean, you can definitely see the heart that you have for what you're doing, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
DB, final thought, brother?
Oh, just, when you got a hold of me this morning in kind of the middle of a crisis in my world, when I said, hey, you got to be co-host, well, who's the guest? And Lee Weems. Oh, I absolutely love Weems in a non-California way. It's, Lee's one of the gifts out there in law enforcement that don't come along often, where you get a guy who can actually get into a position where he can make a difference and make the needed changes in philosophy that are very hard to make in a very stubborn world. And combine that with what he's done with the doing some really solid work on getting law enforcement and citizens to interact well together without less than optimal results over firearms. And it's a very difficult bridge, and he's done great work on both. So yeah, Lee's one of those guys I usually am bagging on him about some sort of Southern something or other, but is actually one of my all-time favorite people in our circle of peers. So
awesome, man. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on tonight and not to break Lee's balls too much. And
hey, I wasn't the one making cousin uncle jokes and stuff.
Well, my final thought is, folks, thank you. Just wanted to tell you guys that thank you for all of the people who listened to who came to our first civilian carry sponsored show, our class last weekend, which was the Pat McNamara TAPS pistol course. Some of our listeners attended the class: William Schechner, Benjamin DeWalt and his wife Rachel, Jim Yankowski, Jesse Funk, Michael McBroom, Paul Coughlin, Brett Summerfield, Michael Maltz, Kramer Williams, Kevin Osborne, Alan, and myself. We had a phenomenal class. It was also refreshing to hear that Lee it teaches a very same kind of style thing as Pat McNamara, which is varying distances, both under stress and not, anywhere from 3 yards all the way out to 15 to 25 yards to make people make good decisions, and bringing that kind of bearing away from that square range mentality. That's a refreshing thing to hear that other people are out there, and because we think it's very important. And Lee, I leave the final thought to you, sir.
Well, I don't know how to address this diplomatically, so I'm not going to address it diplomatically. I've already talked about what I think the biggest failing in firearms training community is just the lack of historical context. And all that goes along with that, or that doesn't go along with it. And, we're horrible about infighting and backbiting, and, instructors tearing down other instructors. And I've got guys out there that I have differences of opinion on as far as philosophies and what they're teaching and everything. But that doesn't mean we have to attack each other, personally. But beyond that, I think that we need to all understand that just because someone shows up on a range doesn't mean that they signed up to be a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant male that votes Republican. We need to understand that there are the Second Amendment, and basically self-protection is a human right that applies across all political spectrums, applies across all ideologies, preferences, etc., whatever thing you want to throw out there. And we need to remember that that student that may have worked up the courage to finally go out to get training, they need to be welcome on the range. If we want to make this should be the biggest tent out there, to use a political term. This really should be the biggest tent out there. And we need to make it welcoming to the people that may have different political views from us. And, somebody may go to a firearms training class to try to prove that everything they've ever thought about gun owners was right. And if they get the stereotypical stuff, then that's what they're going to go away with. They're going to go away having reinforced those negative opinions and stereotypes. But if they come out there and, all they learned about was how to defend themselves and defend their loved ones, and there weren't political discussions and bagging on different lifestyles and etc., that's where we need to be.
Amen. And I appreciate you saying that, because that is something that me and Alan have strived for from day one. Is you will never, and you will see that not one of our shows has ever had any kind of political discussion, and we specifically rule that out because we agree with what you said. The Second Amendment is a human right. We want everybody to feel welcome, no matter what your race, creed, whatever it is, as much diversity as possible we want to include. And that's why we try to invite a diverse amount of people from different spectrums and different shows. And we're going to also be doing something new. Once we cycle through all of our instructors, we're going to start bringing on some guests, just regular average Joes, to have on that are just regular people. We're going to pick them out of the hat that want to come on and be a guest host, because we really feel like that will bring a different, aspect to the show, and just start bringing on some people that are good, regular folks that are out here training, that carry a gun daily, to hear their perspectives, because we think that will open up and broaden too. But we wanted to lay the groundwork first by getting people more exposed to instructors in their different states and areas by that. Because again, our show is about pro Second Amendment. We want people to understand that their lives are their responsibilities and their personal safety is their responsibility, because people have these huge misconceptions over and over that is they pass their safety off to law enforcement. And I keep telling people, go read Warren versus DC, 2005. Police have no constitutional obligation to protect you. You have to learn how to do that yourself. And Daryl has spoken on it many times. Lee, you brought some of the discussion about it tonight, and I just think it's very important. So thank you so much for that final thought. That was one of the best final thoughts we've had in a long time. And thank you so much for coming on and being a guest on our show tonight, Lee. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Daryl, thank you so much for co-hosting tonight. We really appreciate it, brother, as always. And Alan, thank you as always, man. I know you're tired. You've been up since the crack of dawn, and I know you got to get up at the crack of dawn tomorrow, brother. So thank you for what you do, brother.
Oh, it's all good, man. Thanks.
All right, guys, folks, please get out there, get some training, refer the show to other people, man. Just send it out to a friend. Do us a favor. Each one of you listening, send the show out, pick a show, send it to a friend, get them to listen in, get them to subscribe, and pass the message on. Firearm safety education, training, security mindset. Only you are responsible for your own safety. And it's also the people in your community. When you're safe, you can help out. Maybe you're going to save the life of your neighbor, or save the life of somebody else that you love and care about. Just get out there, get some training. And even if it's not with a gun, proper mindset goes a long way in prevention. All right, folks, God bless you guys. Be safe. Take care. Have a good night. And thank you as always for your support.